He doesn't bark at just anything. He observes, he analyzes, and when you least expect it, he simply turns his face away. The Siberian Husky isn't just a beautiful dog with light eyes. It's an animal that carries in its eyes a past of extremes, and in its actions, a nature that isn't always easy to decipher. You've heard stories of dogs that cry with longing for their owners. But have you ever heard of a dog that can hold a grudge against the one who raised it? Sounds absurd, doesn't it? But the Husky has a rare trait. It's too intelligent to forget. And when it feels betrayed, ignored, or underestimated, something changes inside it. Some say it's stubbornness, others that it's coldness, but the truth is, the Siberian Husky feels deeply. It's not resentful like a human, but it's also not made for submission. It's the wolf that decided to live among men, but never stopped being a wolf. Today, you will learn about the origin, the secrets, and the shadow that accompanies this fascinating breed. A story where beauty and distrust walk side by side. And where, behind an enchanting gaze, can live the silence of anger you didn't even realize you caused. The Siberian Husky isn't just a beautiful dog. It's the result of centuries of selection by a people who depended on its strength, endurance, and intelligence to survive, originating with the Chukchi people, nomads of the far northeast of Siberia. This breed was shaped to face the biting cold, pull sleds over long distances, and still live in harmony with human families. Physically, it's the perfect balance between power and lightness. Its body is compact, aerodynamic, and incredibly resilient. The weight varies between 35 and 60 pounds, depending on sex and lineage, and the height can reach up to 23.5 inches at the withers. But what really stands out is its coat, thick, double, and waterproof, made to withstand temperatures as low as -58 F. It can come in various colors from pure white to black, passing through gray, copper, and even mixed combinations. And of course, the eyes, one of the Husky's most iconic features. Icy blue, intense brown, or heterochromatic one eye of each color, they carry a curious, intelligent, and mysteriously wild expression. Their gaze often conveys a kind of emotional distance, something that intrigues even the most experienced owners. But aesthetics are just the beginning. This dog is extremely energetic, vocal, and independent. It needs large areas to run, constant mental challenges, and, above all, a firm and balanced owner. The Husky doesn't respond well to blind obedience. It questions, tests limits, and, if bored, can become destructive or even run away, as it's a master escape artist. Living with a Husky requires physical, psychological, and emotional preparation. It's the kind of animal that, if not understood, can become a bigger challenge than many expect. But like everything intense, it can also be unforgettable. Before conquering the hearts of millions around the world, the Siberian Husky was already a vital part of the survival of a people almost forgotten by modern history, the Chukchi, nomadic inhabitants of eastern Siberia, in an environment where the cold could kill in minutes and resources were scarce. These dogs were not just working animals, they were life partners. It is believed that the breed was developed over 3,000 years ago, making the Husky one of the oldest known working breeds. The Chukchi created them with a clear purpose to pull sleds over long distances, with the lowest possible energy consumption. For this, the dogs needed to be light, resilient, intelligent, and docile enough to live among the tribe's children, but also determined to face snowstorms, treacherous terrain, and endless journeys. Unlike other sled dog breeds, the Husky was not made for brute force, but for efficiency and speed. Their endurance was such that they could travel up to 100 miles a day, carrying loads without showing signs of exhaustion. They fed on minimal portions of fat and dried fish, and still maintained energy and vitality. Contact with the West occurred in the early 20th century, when Russian explorers began to report the existence of these exceptional dogs. But it was in 1910, during the famous All-Alaska Sweepstake race, that the world saw what the Husky could do. A team led by a Norwegian named Leonhard Sapala won the race using Chukchi Huskies, surpassing larger and more robust breeds. Fame came instantly. A few years later, the Huskies were called upon for a mission that would go down in history. In 1925, a diphtheria epidemic threatened the isolated city of Nome, Alaska. A sled dog relay was formed to transport antitoxin serum for nearly 700 miles in less than a week. The journey became known as the Serum Run, and the Husky, led by Balto, today a symbol of courage and resilience, was immortalized. Since then, the Husky has ceased to be just a working dog to become a symbol of bravery and free spirit. But its roots remain there, intact in the DNA of every specimen: the cold, the snow, the silence of the white landscapes, and the instinct to run, always run. If the sleds of Siberia revealed the strength of the Siberian Husky to the world, it was pop culture that transformed it into a true celebrity. The exotic appearance, the ice-like eyes, and the almost mystical posture paved the way for the Husky to leave the northern snows and enter directly into homes, onto screens, and, why not, into the hearts of millions of people. It all began with the growing popularity of sled dog racing in Alaska. Balto, the hero of the Serum Run in 1925, became a living legend. His story was told in books, documentaries, and gained prominence with the animated film Balto 1995, produced by Universal. The children's film moved generations and eternalized the Husky as a symbol of courage and loyalty. But it was with the arrival of social media and the era of pet influencers that the Husky truly exploded in fame. Dogs like Mishka, who talk to humans, or Go on the Husky, who accumulates millions of followers on YouTube, showed the world the unique personality of the breed: dramatic, expressive, stubborn, and absolutely captivating on television. In movies and even in music videos, the Husky began to represent more than just a beautiful dog. It became a symbol of adventure, freedom, and a touch of rebellion. It appeared in series like Game of Thrones, where many confused the dire wolves with Huskies, further increasing its visual appeal. But behind all this fame, there is a little spoken truth. Not everyone is prepared to handle a Husky, and that's where the story begins to change. If you've already been enchanted by the beauty and fame of the Husky, get ready. In the next chapter, we will explore a side that few people know, how the breed almost disappeared, and why some experts still turn up their noses at it. Don't skip this part. The fame that today surrounds the Siberian Husky almost didn't exist. Before conquering the internet, movies, and the hearts of dog lovers, this breed had to fight, literally, for its own survival. And even after escaping extinction, the Husky is still the target of severe criticism, especially among canine behavior specialists. The first major risk of disappearance occurred in Siberia itself. The Chukchi, a nomadic people of northeastern Russia, used Huskies as sled dogs for survival, and even for protection in extreme conditions. But with the advancement of the Russian Empire, and later, the Soviet Union, indigenous traditions began to be suppressed. The nomadic lifestyle was discouraged and many dogs ceased to be bred. Without a practical function, many Huskies were abandoned or killed. The breed almost vanished from the map. It was thanks to American explorers and sportsmen, like Leonhard Sapala, that some specimens managed to escape oblivion. In 1909, Huskies were taken to Alaska, where they excelled in sled dog races, demonstrating speed and endurance superior to other breeds. The fame of the Serum Miracle of 1925 consolidated their importance, but even so, outside of sporting circuits, few people saw the utility of keeping a Husky at home. Decades later, in the modern era, a new type of threat emerged: uninformed popularization. With the exotic beauty being widely publicized on the internet and films like Balto and series like Game of Thrones, the demand for Huskies skyrocketed. Opportunistic breeders began to reproduce dogs on a large scale, without any genetic criteria or concern for temperament. The result: many puppies developed behavioral problems, intolerance to traditional training, and a high escape instinct, natural characteristics of the breed, but exacerbated in unprepared homes. In addition, Huskies began to be seen as difficult dogs. They howl instead of bark, are extremely independent, and their stubbornness was misinterpreted as aggression or disobedience for inexperienced owners. The Husky became a problem, and not infrequently, a dog returned to shelters or abandoned. Experts began to harshly criticize the domestic breeding of the breed. Many ethologists argue that the Husky is not a dog for urban environments. It needs space, cold weather, and constant physical and mental stimulation. Without this, it develops destructive behaviors: digging, escaping, howling, chewing doors. Some even nicknamed it the most beautiful and most misunderstood dog in the world. Another point that drew criticism was genetic confusion. To meet demand, many Huskies were crossed with similar-looking breeds, such as the Alaskan Malamute, diluting original characteristics of the Siberian lineage. This generated less balanced dogs, both physically and emotionally. Currently specialized rescues report that many abandoned Huskies show signs of deep anxiety, resulting from the frustration of living in inadequate environments. Despite all this, the Husky endures. It is a breed that carries in its DNA the resilience of centuries, but it is precisely this resilience that makes it incompatible with monotonous routines and owners looking for a couch pet. And the current scenario is paradoxical. While loved by millions, the Husky is constantly listed among the most abandoned dogs in various countries. According to animal protection NGOs in the US and Brazil, the number of rescued Huskies has increased dramatically in recent years, driven mainly by ill-considered adoptions motivated by media fads. And there's more. The most recent criticism doesn't come from trainers but from science itself. Studies of animal behavior indicate that the Husky may carry remnants of more pronounced pack behavior than other breeds. This would explain their tendency to react intensely to changes, separations, or feelings of rejection. In other words, the Husky feels, and in extreme cases, it can even resent. In the next part, you will discover why the Husky, despite looking like an Arctic beast, can be fragile inside. We will talk about common diseases care that few know about and why. Often, the beauty of this breed demands daily sacrifices. Stay with us, and if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. The beauty of the Siberian Husky is undeniable, but behind the exuberant coat and mesmerizing eyes, there are rigorous care requirements that many owners ignore until it's too late. Unlike breeds developed for urban living, the Husky was shaped to withstand the extreme, and this creates a paradox. Although it looks strong on the outside, it is vulnerable in aspects that surprise even experienced owners. Starting with the double coat, created to withstand temperatures of -58°F, it requires frequent brushing, at least 3 times a week. During the seasonal shedding process, the Husky literally explodes hair all over the house if not brushed correctly. The dead undercoat accumulates and can cause serious dermatitis. The use of hot dryers or radical shaves, common in unprepared pet shops, are also dangerous. In addition to damaging the dog's natural thermal balance, they can generate severe stress. Another challenge comes from the uncontrollable energy. Huskies need intense activity daily. Short walks are not enough. The ideal are long trails, runs, or obstacle courses. Without this, frustration turns into destructive behaviors, chewed doors, holes in the yard, destroyed furniture, and, in some cases, even risky escapes. And speaking of escape, a warning is in order. The Husky's exploratory instinct is very strong. Even well-fed, loved, and exercised, it can run away just out of curiosity. Therefore, high fences, reinforced gates, and collars with identification are essential. In the field of health, although generally robust dogs, Huskies have a predisposition to some genetic diseases. The most common is hip dysplasia, a malformation of the hip joint that, over time, causes pain, loss of mobility, and even muscle atrophy. It is not uncommon for a Husky to need surgery at a young age if not well monitored. Another growing concern is eye problems. The characteristic blue eyes hide a risk, progressive retinal atrophy, a degenerative condition that can lead to blindness. There are also records of juvenile cataracts, which can appear even before 2 years of age. In the neurological field, some lines show a tendency to idiopathic epilepsy. With no apparent cause, although controllable with medication, it requires constant monitoring and can be emotionally draining for the owner. Diet also deserves attention. Being a breed accustomed to physical exertion, the Husky needs balanced diets rich in protein. However, gastric problems and food allergies are not uncommon, especially with low-quality feeds. Intolerance to grains, for example, can cause recurrent diarrhea, itching, and hair loss. And there is a sensitive point that few people comment on. The Husky, however resistant it may seem, suffers from heat. Its physical structure was made to conserve heat, not dissipate it. In tropical climates, it can show symptoms such as panting, lethargy, and even heat stroke. In hot regions, it is essential to offer shady places, cool floors, plenty of water, and avoid physical activities during the hottest hours of the day. In addition to physical care, there is the emotional aspect. The Husky is a pack dog, and when left alone for many hours, it can develop separation anxiety. And here is one of the paradoxes of the breed. Although it seems distant and even indifferent, it forms deep bonds with its owner. When it feels it is being ignored, it can react with destruction or even passive aggression. Caring for a Husky is like dealing with an elite athlete who needs structure, routine, stimulation, and constant emotional connection. It's not enough to feed it and take it for a walk around the block. It demands commitment. And if you are not willing to dive headfirst into this mission, perhaps the Husky is not the ideal dog for you. But what if it feels you are not up to par? Can a Husky hold a grudge? Next, we will explore the scientific theories and the still unresolved mysteries behind the enigmatic behavior of this breed. Get ready to delve into the more psychological and even dark side of the Siberian Husky. Okay, here's the English translation of that section. As much as science advances, there are deep layers in the psyche of the Siberian Husky that remain a mystery, even for the most experienced ethologist. Its ancestral origin, almost lupine behavior, and extraordinary intelligence defy the traditional standards of study on domestic dogs. Let's start with the pack instinct, which in the Husky is not just a behavioral characteristic, it's an almost primitive trait. While other breeds developed for human companionship were shaped for obedience, the Husky has preserved its own hierarchical nature. In other words, it obeys those it respects. Leadership for it needs to be earned, not imposed. This raises one of the most debated questions among trainers: does the Husky recognize authority based on affection or behavior? Research suggests that the Husky possesses a cognitive capacity for social evaluation. It observes how its owner interacts with other people and animals, and forms a kind of rudimentary moral judgment. If it senses inconsistency, emotional abandonment, or disrespect for the pack order, it may respond with coldness. Some say that this type of dog holds grudges, but science prefers another term: long-term emotional memory. This type of memory allows the Husky to associate situations, places, and, yes, people with specific feelings. This is why a Husky may ignore a former owner after a reunion, even years later, if the previous relationship was marked by tension or neglect. And here the mystery comes in. Does it feel anger? Anger, according to animal neuroscience, is an emotion associated with prolonged frustration, and many ethologists point out that the Husky, being extremely intelligent and sensitive, is more susceptible to deep frustrations when it's social or emotional. Expectations are broken. This can generate behaviors that simulate contempt, indifference, or even indirect retaliation, such as destroying the owner's personal belongings. Another little explore point is the complex vocalization of the breed. Huskies are known for talking, howling, and emitting sounds that resemble human language. Scientists at the University of Jyväskylä in Finland studied sound patterns in Huskies and concluded that there are variations that indicate not only instinctive communication, but attempts to express specific emotions such as longing, irritation, or frustration. Unlike random barks, the Husky's sounds have rhythm, intonation, and even repetitions that approach musical patterns, a language not yet fully deciphered. And if we go deeper, we find something even more intriguing: resistance to emotional domestication. Although they have been raised by humans for thousands of years, Huskies still exhibit traits of emotional autonomy that radically differentiate them from breeds like Golden Retrievers or Labradors. They love, yes, but in their own way, closer to a wolf that respects another wolf in the pack than a dog that idolizes its owner. This characteristic raises a final question that intrigues behavioral scientists. Is the Husky an emotional mirror of its owner? Many owners report that the Husky's behavior changes radically. When the atmosphere in the house changes, it isolates itself when there are arguments, avoids touch when it is hurt, approaches when it senses pain, but never in the expected way. Its emotional response is not predictable, it is interpretive. The University of Tokyo conducted a study with 87 Huskies analyzing the level of salivary cortisol, stress hormone, after interactions with their owners. Interestingly, the levels rose not in situations of direct stress, but when the owner presented intense emotional changes even without touching the dog. This suggests a primitive empathic capacity, where the Husky absorbs the emotional state of the environment without needing physical contact. It feels and it reacts. Perhaps what is most fascinating about the Husky is not its strength, its beauty, or its resilience, but rather the fact that, even surrounded by humans, it has never stopped being wild inside, a free spirit that does not bend, does not surrender easily, and for this very reason, awakens as much love as frustration. If even science is still trying to decipher it, do we? Simple owners really know it. Now you will discover the 10 reasons why a Husky might not like you. And be prepared, because it might be uncomfortable to hear the truth coming from a gaze as piercing as its own. You may even love your Husky, but does it feel the same way about you? The truth is that the Siberian Husky is not a common dog. It doesn't accept everything silently, nor does it pretend to be happy just to please. If something in your behavior displeases it, it makes it clear, and perhaps, just perhaps, it has already decided that you are not worthy of its loyalty. Here are 10 real reasons why a Husky might not like you, and the worst part, without ever saying a word. It may already be shouting this with its gaze. You try to control too much. Huskies do not respond well to domination. They were created to work as a team, not to obey blindly. If you yell, force commands, or try to be the alpha through imposition, it simply shuts down. The Husky respects calm and consistent leaders, not dictators. You leave it bored. Few things irritate a Husky as much as a routine without stimulation. It needs to run, explore, solve problems. If the only adventure it is in a day is walking around the block, it will internalize this boredom and turn it into frustration. You ignore what it's trying to tell you. Howls, soft growls, withdrawal, averted gazes. The Husky communicates all the time, but many owners ignore these signs, treating them as tantrums. And for the Husky, it's as if you've emotionally turned it off. You can find it for too long. Crates, small spaces, chains, isolation. The Husky was not made for confinement. If it spends hours alone or limited in a tight space, it not only suffers, it stores that suffering and associates it with whoever allowed it. You lie to it, yes, it notices, promise to play, and don't follow through. Call it with a sweet voice, and then force it into a bath. Say it'll be quick and disappear for hours. The Husky associates words, tones of voice, and patterns of behavior. It learns when you are inconsistent. And when trust breaks, the bond dissolves. You don't see it as an equal. Huskies do not submit emotionally. They connect when they perceive they are treated with respect. If you see the Husky as a simple decorative pet or a pretty animal, it notices. It wants partnership, not an audience. You don't take care of its health as you should. Ear infections, allergies, joint problems, heat hypersensitivity. Ignoring signs of discomfort is a silent betrayal. The Husky feels that something is wrong, and if you don't notice or don't act, it understands this as abandonment. You expose it to high temperatures. Leaving a Husky in the yard under a strong sun is like putting a penguin in the desert. It suffers in silence, but never forgets. High temperatures not only harm its health, but also cause continuous stress that affects its mood and relationship with the environment. You don't truly communicate. It's not enough to feed it and give it water. The Husky wants connection. It needs to observe you, understand your intentions, feel included. If you treat it like an accessory that only interacts when you have time, it distances itself. Not out of malice, but for emotional protection. You don't listen when it's trying to warn you about something. The Husky howls, scratches at the door, destroys an object, or refuses to eat, and the owner calls it acting out. But often, it's the only way it has to say something is wrong, and if, even then, you don't understand, it gives up trying. Final reflection, the Husky is a dog that demands respect, reciprocity, and genuine attention. It doesn't love out of obligation. It chooses who to love, and when it chooses, it's forever. But if it is disappointed, it doesn't bark. It falls silent, and in the silence, it pushes you away. If any of these signs describe your relationship with your Husky, perhaps it's time to change. Or you may discover the hard way that, in its head, the bond between you is already broken. Comment below, which of these 10 reasons surprised you the most? And if you have a Husky at home, have you noticed any strange reactions from it? That now make more sense. In the next and final segment, we will close this journey with an intense reflection and a question you may never have asked yourself. Has your Husky ever felt anger towards you? And what could that mean? You've gotten to know the Siberian Husky behind the silky coat, the mesmerizing eyes, and the fame on social media. You've discovered that, behind so much beauty, there is a free, almost wild spirit, with intense emotions and memories that it keeps forever. It's not just a pretty dog. It's a living testament to resilience, intelligence, and ancestry. But it's also a mirror, a reflection of what you offer emotionally. If you give respect, connection, and purpose, it returns loyalty, affection, and even heroism. But if you give coldness, absence, or neglect, it responds in kind, with distance, with frustration, with silent anger. Because the Husky is not foolish. It feels, and perhaps, just perhaps, it gave up on you a long time ago, without you even realizing it. Throughout this journey, we've seen how it almost disappeared, how it was judged, how it faced the extremes, and how, even today, it continues to be misunderstood by many. But if there's one thing the Husky teaches us, it's that trust can be broken in seconds, and it can take years to rebuild, if at all. So, before you buy a new collar, an expensive toy, or plan that walk in the park, stop, look into its eyes, and ask yourself, does it still believe in me? If this video made you think differently about your own dog, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves or needs to understand a Siberian Husky. And comment below, what did you learn most about the Husky today? But before you leave, in the next episode, we will explore the mysterious origin of a canine breed with feline traits, hunter instincts, and a past link to ancestral cults. Are you ready to discover the cat that became a legend? Among Dogs, see you there.